The UK has some absolutely phenomenal racetracks. Some of them historic but not well known, and some of them are just used for one or two series these days. But with Microsoft Flight Simulator being so awesome and the way it puts together the whole world, and you can see your house, your school, your parents' house, that tree you used to climb when you were a kid and fell out of and cracked your skull open and other grim things like that, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to do a UK circuit tour in Flight Simulator, flying over pretty much all of the tracks in the UK, have a look at them and sort of talk about the history of them and all that cool stuff. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. Now this is kind of like a trial run. Yeah, it's going to take me about an hour to complete the flight. I'll edit out all the dead air and things like that and just find some stuff to talk about and see what cool things we can spot from up here. Like what kind of details does Flight Simulator have? So if the demand is there, I'll do a part 2 where we fly onto a couple of more tracks and then up to maybe Donington Park and then try and finish off at Knockhill in Scotland. But this is kind of the first run, which will see us go from Thruxton up to Snetterton. So my actual departure point today is going to be the Thruxton circuit. It's still an active airfield when there's no racing going on. If I zoom out, you can see the rest of the actual route I'm going to take this morning, which is going to take me down towards Winchester, Waterlooville to Chichester here, which is where the Goodwood circuit is. So we're going to fly over the Goodwood circuit, see the estate and where the Festival of Speed and all that happens, and then kind of head northeast away from Bognor Regis, Brighton, that area towards Crawley and Gatwick Airport, overfly Gatwick, up towards Brands Hatch. Now Brands Hatch is actually listed as an airfield here because I've downloaded some scenery that adds in the heliports, which will be really useful when the helicopters come in about a month or so. Then we're going to fly north over Dartford and the River Thames towards Stanstead Airport, which is this little navigational aid here, and then head northeast a little bit into sort of Cambridgeshire over Bury St Edmunds towards Thetford, and then this little joint here where it then goes up to the northeast a little bit more is the Snetterton circuit. So we're going to overfly Snetterton, have a good look at that, and then fly up towards Norwich where we'll land, or if I'm not feeling it when we get to Snetterton, I'll probably just land somewhere else, probably here, Old Buckingham or something like that. The Norfolk Glide Club. I'll just find somewhere to set it down and then wind everything up. And then part 2 will see us head west towards Kings Lynn, Wisbech, Fenland, Peterborough, towards Birmingham, and then that part will end up somewhere around here where Donington Park is. So for today, Thruxton to Snetterton. Let's see what we can see from our little plane here. Okay then, so here we are on the ground at Thruxton. The weather is British. Let's just put it that way. I've just set it to scattered clouds because real world weather in the area at the minute is a bit iffy, so I thought I'll set it to something close and then just roll with it. It's early morning, just after 9 o'clock in-game time. It's about 10:30 in reality, so it's only about an hour behind what we're actually experiencing in real time. But without too much else to say, I'm just going to get this thing started, get it in the air, because I know you lot are here to see some racetracks. So let's get this thing started up. Alternators and batteries on. Get all that warmed up. Let's get the nav lights on. Let's get the floodlights on. Let's get the panel lights on. We'll put the taxi lights on as well. Put the beacons on as well. Wings, yeah, why not? Crank that up, crank that up. Pop that on, pop that on. Pitot heat, why not? It's a bit cold out there. And that's pretty much it. So let's start the engines. I'll start them both at the same time because I don't really care. Not really one for checklists. I know that there's going to be people who are getting a little bit triggered because I'm not doing it by the book. But I'm here to look at racetracks on the air, not be a real world pilot. So if you're going to start commenting that I'm not doing it by the procedures, I'm not flying the plane in accordance with the actual manual, you can take your comment and shove it. So that's all on. I can turn the avionics on now. That's cranked, that's cranked. We'll put the flaps down. Press that soft key to continue. There's my flight plan. All good. So I'll take off on that runway just there. Loop around Thruxton, show you what it's like. See if I can ream off some information about it. and then head along that magenta line towards Goodwood. 38.5 nautical miles to run to Goodwood, so it's not too far. It's probably about, what, 10 or 15 minutes or something like that. And I do like the update for the Garmin system. You used to have to fly a couple of nautical miles away from the airport to get it to calibrate, and then you could fly towards your next waypoint, but now you can just fly directly there, because it used to say EGHO to some like custom or something like that. It was quite annoying, so good update for this. Can't wait for the 40th anniversary update as well as the update for Canada that's coming. Do love flying in that part of the world, so I'm just going to bring that down to idle. Not going to need the cowl flaps today. Everything's good. I can shove the checklists. Let's get out of here. That man is going to get minced if he's not careful. Splat. Just got visions of the Combine Harvester from Grand Theft Auto. So, just making sure everything's all good here. Not going to bother doing a run-up because I'm not here to be realistic. Strobes on. Landing lights on. Right, let's go. Let's depart the fastest racetrack in Britain. Do love that you can see the elevation change in the runway. Apparently it's 10 metres of elevation change here. The racetrack built in 1950. Well, opened in 1950. I suppose it was built when the airport was built, or the airfield was built. Not going to need a full throttle takeoff here. We'll use all the runway. And then I'm going to loop around to the left, so that the airport's on the left. Gear up. And then just ease off the throttle a bit. Right. We're in the air. Looks stunning, this game, doesn't it? Okay, let's bring around. Get some altitude. Get the flaps up. And there she is. Thruxton. So that perimeter road you can see around the runways is... well, it is the racetrack. Literally just uses the perimeter road like Silverstone used to, and then they altered Silverstone to include runways and things like that. That's Boscombe down in the distance, that runway you can see. I'm actually in the ILS for Boscombe. So we're basically going the wrong way around the track at the minute, because I wanted to keep the track on the left hand side so it's easier to see. I don't want to keep going between internal and external views. So that twisty section is the complex, looking towards turn 1. You can see that building just on the apex of turn 1 there. So that's Allard's Corner. You can see the green of the sort of astroturfing on the inside of the corner. You can see some of the details in the track. Pit lane on the left hand side. I can actually see the markings for the grid, the chicane near to where we departed our parking spot. Let's loop it round. Church Corner, one of the most notorious corners in British motorsport. A lot of smashes happened there. Some Ginettas had a massive crash near here. Goodwood Corner at the end of the runway. Very, very fast track. Like I say, it's the fastest track in Britain. Damon Hill actually holds the outright record for Thruxton. You can see the apex curbing. Complex there as the runways overlap. Pretty damn cool. So much detail in this. There's Church Corner. I think when Damon lapped around here, he must have done the whole thing at probably 90% full throttle. He did it in a Williams or a Brabham, can't remember. But he lapped the track in 30 seconds or something like that. Ridiculous. And that's something that gets a lot of people. It's like, what, Thruxton's the fastest track in Britain? I thought it was Silverstone. But I mean, if you take a Formula 1 car to Silverstone, it's going to do a certain lap time. Or average speed over the lap, I should say. Take it to Thruxton, it's going to go even faster. So, 37.4 to go. Over Hampshire. Old Hampshire. We can climb this thing up to probably about 3,000 feet. I think the clouds will allow me. Just for reference, 1 nautical mile is 1.1 standard miles. It's because it's the curvature of the Earth it measures it by rather than along the ground. It's one of the many things borrowed from sailing and boating and maritime stuff. Because aeroplane translates to airboat in Greek or something along those lines. So we're at 2,000 feet here. Where's my cursor? Let's whack the autopilot on then. Altitude hold, navigation mode, and now I can turn off the landing lights and the taxi lights, and we can turn off the floodlights as well, and then just slow everything down a little bit. Don't want to go too quick. I've got plenty of fuel. If anything, I've way overfueled this thing. But, yeah. Off to Goodwood. I'll try and talk about stuff as much as I can. Obviously chop out the dead air. So I'm actually using a small program to assist me with this flight. It's called Little NavMap. And it's basically showing me where I am. Very useful for VFR flying, which is pretty much what I'm doing. Even though I've got the autopilot on and it's just following the route that I've programmed in. So just behind us is Andover. To the south, probably can't see it too well, is Southampton Airport. But yeah, that's gonna help us a little bit with what we're doing. Sit back and enjoy the flight, I guess. Now, one thing you're going to notice about a few of the places we're going to, they're airfields, or were airfields. So the first 2 tracks we're visiting on this little trip, journey, whatever you want to call it, are still active airfields. Thruxton and Goodwood. Thruxton being a staple of the BTCC and its support packages. Goodwood, home of the revival. Also hosted Formula 1 races. Home of the hill climb. Home of the Festival of Speed. So even though Silverstone is kind of like the centre, it all kind of really started down here. And it's great that we do have somewhere like Goodwood, which we're going to get to in about 27 nautical miles, as we're getting battered by the turbulence up here. I know England gets a lot of flack, but it is pretty up here, isn't it? So I thought I'd talk a little bit about the plane I've picked for this. Beechcraft Baron. What an aircraft. It's probably the aircraft I fly the most in Flight Simulator. It's easy to fly. It's got a decent range. It's got speed and power. That's pretty much the main reason I picked it. I was going to do it in like a Cessna 172 or something like that, but I just thought, this is faster. We're talking about racetracks. Racetracks have fast cars on them. Might as well pick a fast plane. I've flown this thing pretty much the entire length of the Pacific coast, from sort of the LA area, you know, Burbank, Santa Catalina, Santa Monica, up to the Bay Area, so Half Moon Bay, the Sonoma Valley, up to Mount Shasta and Klamath, up the Oregon coast to Vancouver, Washington, with the fun approach into there, and then all the way up to Friday Harbor and Bellingham in Washington, and then all the way back down. Like, the sheer technological wizardry they've done to make this. It's like, according to little NavMap now, I'm flying over the village of Warnford, which is there. Now, that's where Warnford is in real life. That river is actually there. That road is actually there. That field is actually there. And like, it's not a true one-to-one replica. All the trees are generic and some of the buildings are generic. Thruxton's buildings are generic, but even if you fly over your own school or your house or where you live, like the local football ground or something, it's like, well, it's not exactly what the football ground looks like or what my town looks like, but it gives you enough of an idea. And this is the flight simulator that, like 20 years ago, this is what we dreamed of. And I have been a flight sim guy for many years, from 95 through 98, 2000, with Concorde as, you know, default content in that. Like, this is, like, video gaming is going to go places with this. As we have, that's Portsmouth and the Solent down there on the right. Making our way sort of southeast-ish towards Goodwood, which is now just over 12.5 miles away. Hope it doesn't rain. I mean, let's be honest, this is looking out of the window simulator, isn't it? It's just mind-boggling. It's like, if you put the right filter on that, you'd be like, it's real life, isn't it? And like many, I flew straight to my house, well, where I grew up, just to test the realism of it. And it's like, yep, I recognise that road, I recognise that street, I recognise that roundabout. That's the road I grew up on. That's where you know, the house I grew up in. As we are now 4.6 from Goodwood. Should, if I just see Chichester directly ahead there, just above the compass. I'm pointed directly at Goodwood Airfield, which is there. So we are many close to our second destination already, and then we're going to fly up towards Gatwick and Brands Hatch. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn the autopilot off, slow up a wee bit. I'm just going to bring myself to the right of the airfield, fly directly over Chichester here, and you'll be able to see the Goodwood circuit. This is where Sterling Moss's career ended in 1961. Non-championship round at Goodwood. Had an accident, I think it was with Graham Hill, and that's where he picked up his head injuries and just wasn't the same after that. I think this is just the Goodwood circuit. The hill climb is somewhere else. I actually don't know where it is. That's a river, isn't it? Just checking the map on the other side. Grass runways at Goodwood. Very fun track in a Assetto Corsa if you want to drive it. And it's pretty much the same as Thruxton, isn't it? Just fast airport perimeter roads. Because, you know, after the 1940s, we had quite a lot of these airfields just sitting around not doing anything, and the engineers needed something to do, the pilots needed something to do, so it's like, I dare say, old chap, why don't we take one of these old airfields and race our little motor cars around it? So the mechanics that worked on the aeroplanes made the cars go fast. The pilots drove them, and the airfields became the racetracks. Like I say, Goodwood, Thruxton, Snetterton, Silverstone, Croft, the Bedford track, which we're not going to, is an old airfield. But what a selection of tracks we have in the UK. Just fast and flowing at the same time. As we're in danger of dying here. But yeah, that's Goodwood. Like I say, it's amazing how they've managed to put everything together here. That little bit of tarmac there, that's the chicane for the Revival. You can see the grid markings on the track once again. I mean, some of the buildings are a little bit off, but hey, I don't care. You can see exactly what it's supposed to be. And we can now punch it. Wave goodbye to Goodwood. Head towards Brands Hatch, which I cannot wait to see. So apparently the racing at Goodwood started in 1948. The racing at the hill climb started in 1936. And the airfield was called RAF West Hampnet. Obviously constructed during World War II. And then afterwards they just started racing cars around it. I'm trying to find the actual lap records for Goodwood. Apologies if I'm not looking at anything outside, but there's the English Channel at least. My track hat. I'm trying to read it off my phone, but the all this other stuff. Oh yeah, so in testing. Yes, I completely forgot about this. McLaren founder Bruce McLaren was killed at Goodwood in 1970. Happened on the Levant Strait apparently, and then he left the track and hit a bunker. But that car would then go on to win the Can-Am Championship, which is it's quite sad about Bruce McLaren because I think he would have been super duper successful. You got the Revival, the Festival of Speed, all of that stuff happens around here. The race lap record is a 109.9 set by Nick Padmore in Arrows A11, which was the 1990 Arrows car, back when it was called Footwork, when it was sponsored by the Japanese footwear company. Porsche engines in the back of that thing. Just some other interesting stuff. Jackie Stewart and Jim Clark have the Formula 1 lap record because they both set a 120.4 exactly. That's the first time I've ever seen two cars ever hold, or two people hold the same lap record. Jim Clark has the lap record in a Lotus 30. Denny Hulme has the Formula 2 lap record. Bruce McLaren has the sports car lap record. Emanuele Pirro has the Group 3 record. And then on the original circuit from 48 to 51, which I think is pre-chicane, Giuseppe Farina has the lap record there with a 128 dead. Sterling Moss lap record in the Voiturette class and the sports car class on that old track as well. So it's a very British track, isn't it? Stewart, Clark, Moss. It's, if there was a quintessentially British track, it's Goodwood. So a little NavMap telling me that I'm now in the Gatwick control zone. In real life, I would be in a lot of trouble for flying through here without permission, but we're just going for a fun little flight, so don't need to worry about getting shot down or anything or anything like that. I mean, there are no accidents in flying, just happy little infractions. So basically, if you are a pilot in Flight Simulator that mainly flies around the US, basically I'm flying into Class B airspace without permission. The airspace in Britain is very, very congested, very restricted. So there is Gatwick Airport right now, directly ahead of us, which forms the next waypoint on our little route. Doing 190 knots. I am flying way too fast here. Let's slow that down a little bit. Gatwick Airport, only one of 2 dual runway commercial airports in Britain. Sorry, 3, along with Heathrow and Manchester. But the second runway at Gatwick isn't used. Should be able to see it out of the window in a second. And then we're off to Brands Hatch, lads. Like a dog on his way to the park. There we go. Gatwick Airport. Or I could do the GoPro view. If you don't have a head tracker, get one. They are just a godsend for this sort of stuff, and for things like Euro Truck as well. You can use them in sim racing, but it's like trying to turn your head and still being able to look at the screen. It's probably not as suited for racing, but for flying. Also works phenomenally well in Armour 3. Which is a game I do enjoy playing. Right, so Gatwick Airport has been passed over. Now we have to use a waypoint number 1, 20 nautical miles away, and that will be Brands Hatch. Might as well fill some of this dead air with stuff about me, I guess, because people want to know stuff and things like that. What video games do I enjoy playing outside of Sims and that kind of thing? Well, obviously Flight Simulator, that's one of them. I also enjoy the Resident Evil series of games. Haven't played 7 or 8. I've watched other people play 7 and 8. It's just time, really. Shenmue's a firm favourite of mine, and actually Shenmue, without Shenmue, games as we know them now, like Fallout, Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas, the 3D era and HD era Grand Theft Auto games, Watch Dogs, basically any of these open world games wouldn't exist. It was groundbreaking, even though there's a stat that every Dreamcast owner would have had to have bought it twice for it to break even. That's how much it cost. One of the games I'm into. Stellaris, playing the Star Trek mod on that. Fallout New Vegas in particular. I just like games with stories. Who would have thought the guy that tells stories on the internet likes games with a good story? So Fallout New Vegas, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Resident Evil. That's pretty much it, really. Used to play FIFA. Sort of went off it. Call of Duty. Played that in my early 20s. Modern Warfare 2 is a GOAT game, or a GOAT contender game. Modern Warfare 3 was a bit of a letdown, but Modern Warfare 2, right in that sweet spot. In terms of television, I really like Star Trek, particularly Deep Space Nine. Watched Enterprise through again, it wasn't that bad. Voyager was a letdown. I also like comedies. Not Going Out is one of my favourites. I think that The Wire is one of the greatest TV shows ever made. I also love Law and Order, NCIS, Spooks. Spooks is god tier programming. Was a big fan of Top Gear as a teenager, but actually when Top Gear died off towards the end, you know, with Clarkson getting in trouble for punching the producer, I think it had actually run its course at that point, because before it was like that grey area between is it scripted, is it not scripted, and by the end of it, it became like WWE. You knew what was going to happen just by what was going on in the lead up to that particular thing happening. As we now pass over the M25, which has traffic moving on it. Unrealistic. But yeah, Top Gear was good. There's not really anything on TV that I actually do properly enjoy at the minute. Stuff that I would actually tune in and go, yeah, I need to watch this. Oh, The Thick of It. The Thick of It was funny, even if it is scarily real at the minute. You see stuff happening and you're just like, yeah, I've seen this episode of The Thick of It. But that's enough. That's as political as it's going to get in this video, as we now have the River Thames on our left. So getting close towards London. Up towards to Crawley. So now I have to find Brands Hatch, or ESBC is going to be Brands Hatch. So there it is, it's directly below me. Cool. Right, autopilot off. Slow up once again. I'm going to circle around to the right, I think. No, actually, I'm going to circle around to the left. It's just easier that way, as London is on our left. Dartford Crossing directly in front. M20. I can actually see it on little NavMap. You can actually see the outline of Brands Hatch, which is pretty cool. The sheer realism involved in this. There it is, Brands Hatch. So cool. The kidney bean shaped Indy circuit there. See the Grand Prix circuit in the trees in the back. Now Brands Hatch is quite an interesting one, because it actually used to run the other way around for a bit, and then they gradually added bits and pieces onto it. Gonna need to stage a flap here, just so I can slow up a tiny bit more here. Then you can just sort of see Hawthorne Curve, Dingle Dell, the Sheen Curve, that sort of thing. I'm probably a bit too close to the track here, so let's bring around the other side. The scenery I've downloaded looks absolutely stunning, not gonna lie. Look at that. Let's give it some beans. That is incredible. I didn't realise it was that close to the houses as well. They must be loving life. One time of the Formula 1 British Grand Prix and the European Grand Prix. It's supposed to be a phenomenal track to drive as well. Every race I've ever had there in sim racing, especially on the Indy circuit, has always been a carnage fest. That little bridge is a bit immersion braking, but oh well. Wow, that is so cool. See the pit lane. There's a helipad down there as well. I love how the kart track is basically just a miniature version of the of the Indy circuit. Maybe IndyCar could have a race here. I think the cars might be a tad too quick. So you can see the start-finish line. Then you've got Paddock Hill, Druids, Graham Hill Bend. That is so cool. Not my favourite track in Britain, but still, it's a classic. So now I need to loop around again and get back on course. So we'll do that now. Cut the throttle, bring the flaps up. Probably not flying this within parameters, but don't care. I'm having fun. So I'll grab some facts about Brands Hatch as well. Well, it's where Rennie Arnoux, his Formula 1 career ended. Huge shunt. Well, he broke his legs. So we leave West Kingstown behind. Get the autopilot back on, get the nav mode back on, get the altitude back on. Cool. Let's find out some facts about Brands Hatch then while we head up towards Stanstead Airport in the industrial East End of London. Wave to Tomo while you're down there. Oi oi. Anyway, cool. Let's find some facts about Brands Hatch then. So Brands Hatch, 12 runnings of the British Grand Prix. It's owned by Jonathan Palmer. Well, Jonathan Palmer owns pretty much most of the racetracks in Britain. It's got a really weird starting grid at Brands Hatch because the start line is effectively banked. So if it's raining, all the water just sort of pools up in the like at the bottom near the pit wall. So if you're starting on the inside of the grid, you're screwed. And I think pole position at Brands Hatch is on the inside. And it was the BTCC in 2019 when Turkington had his comeback drive that anybody who started on the inside because it was damp just couldn't get off the line, and it was absolutely mega to watch. And as we're climbing a bit too much here, why aren't you get on there? Right, so we're about 4,000 feet, which is not where I wanted to be, but still we've got some good views of London. But yeah, it was ridiculous because they were just not able to start well at all. And then you go through Paddock Hill, which again is cambered, but then it's downhill as well. So the way the water just runs, and with the steep incline of Paddock Hill being about 8% or something ridiculous like that. And there's on the Indy track, there's just nowhere to overtake apart from Druids, so you have to get a mega launch out of Paddock Hill to outbrake somebody into Druids. But then if you go down the inside of Druids, you've then got the inside line, well, your opponent's got the inside line for Graham Hill. So overtaking at Brands Hatch is just an absolute mammoth task, and yeah, I've just never gone well there. It's a track that I've never had fun at. Let's take this down to about 3,000 here. There we go. And like I say, it used to go the other way around, and it was like a dirt track. And because it's like a natural amphitheatre, you can see pretty much everywhere from the grandstands in on the pit straight. It's supposed to be like a really scenic track, and I've never been there. I probably should at some point. But it's one of the few tracks I know where at one point it went the other way, and then they decided that they were going to change it. And it used to be that Druid's hairpin was never there. It was kind of like a... I don't know how to describe it. I'll put like a map on the screen of how it used to be. It was ridiculous. It's just... something that somebody would just draw on a piece of paper and just go, yeah, that'll do. But like Thruxton, it opened in 1950, so it's not an old track like Brooklands or something like that. It's, in the grand scheme of things, it's a very young track, and they built it for like £17,000 back in 1950 money, which is probably a few million now. Let's just bring that down a little bit. So we have 14.5 to run to Stanstead. Let's see what else we can figure out here. Yep, as to be expected, Stirling Moss, Jim Clark being mentioned. Druids was put in 1954, and that was when they switched the direction around. Let's see what the lap records are like. Grand Prix track was built in the 60s. 70s. And actually, Brands Hatch was the location of one of the first episodes of Can F1 Handle, where I drove the 2020 car around there. Sub 1 minute laps. It just ain't happening again. DTM had races there. That would have been cool. Back when they were the prototypes. The 2019 night race, led by Brabham BT62, Brabham representing. So, current events that happen at Brands Hatch, you've got the British Truck Championship, British Touring Cars, F4, Porsche Carreras, NASCAR Wheel and Euro Series, the Superbikes, A1 Grand Prix was there a couple of times, DTM, Formula 3, Formula 1 in 64, 66, 68, 70, 72, 74, 76, 78, 80, 82, 84 and 86. It was the European Grand Prix in 83 and 85. And you can probably tell that it sort of alternated with Silverstone a bit there. So the Sidecar World Championship. Now that's craziness. 2012 Summer Paralympics where Alex Zanardi won. What are the lap records? The unofficial all-time track record is a 106.9 by Nelson Piquet. The outright lap record is a 109.5 set by Nigel Mansell. The record on the Indy circuit is 38 seconds set by Scott Mansell, driver 61, with a Benetton Renault. For two-wheel fans, the Grand Prix lap record is 124.8. Shane Byrne. Gary Paffett has the DTM lap record. Adam Carroll has the A1 Grand Prix lap record. And Andy Priault has the touring car lap record. Fatal accidents. I don't particularly want to look at fatal accidents. We're having fun up here. Oh, that cloud looks a bit iffy. So, with all those facts out of the way, 5 miles to go until Stanstead, and then we're onwards to our final track of today, which is Snetterton. Awesome. So we're heading up towards our final track of the trip, Snetterton. We've got 35 nautical miles to run to Snet. Somewhere over there is Colchester, so we're pretty much in Essex. We've just left Stanstead behind us. We're going to be heading up towards Bury St Edmunds. Somewhere over there is Cambridge and Duxford. Duxford is an incredible place if you ever get to go. Home of the RAF Museum. Absolutely fantastic place. I think that's the village of Haverhill down there. Cambridge and Duxford are somewhere over there, but yeah, Snetterton, East Anglia, part of the world I know very, very well. I grew up in we'll get to this more in the second part of the trip because we're going to be flying directly over a couple of these places. So I grew up in a small market town about 20 miles from King's Lynn, which is where Martin Brundle and George Russell are from. So we're heading into Russell and Brundle country. Like I say, we've got Cambridge and Duxford over there. Just looking at a little nav map. We're heading towards Bury St Edmunds, so that's going to be directly in front of us in a bit. Cambridge, well, I mean, it's home of Cambridge University and one of the teams in the boat race. Somewhere over there is Ipswich, so we're kind of sort of straddling Essex and Suffolk right now. I think we are actually in Suffolk. Well, we're in that little weird area of Essex, Cambridgeshire, Suffolk, and then we're going to cross into Norfolk. But in part two, we'll go from sort of the Snetterton area. We're going to fly directly over Bourne in Lincolnshire, where the BRN team came from. From there, it's going to be, I think, if I can remember off the top of my head, it's Rockingham down to Silverstone. Oh, cool, a wind turbine. Rockingham, Silverstone, Birmingham, for the Super Pre track. We probably won't see the Super Pre track, but it's just nice to fly over it. Sort of the area that I live in now, and then up to Donington Park to end that little bit of the trip. It's going to be cool. Flying over Bourne, Fenland Airfield. So we're going to get close to Hull Beach, where I grew up. Hell Beach, it should be called. I used to work in Peterborough, and the warehouse in Whittlesea that they had, which is near Peterborough, had a wind turbine in the yard, and I stood directly underneath it, and all you could hear was like someone breathing. There's another wind turbine down there. That's so cool. They make no noise, and it's, natural power. It's just we live on a windy island. Harness it. There is actually a huge wind farm out in the Wash, which is that little cutout near Norfolk. Huge one at Hunstanton. England really is pretty, isn't it? That's RAF Mildenhall. So a lot of the airfields around here do have RAF in front of them. Just off to there. So where did we see Mildenhall? Mildenhall's there. Just off a little bit further up is Lakenheath, which, living in Hull Beach, where there is a bombing range, we saw on the daily military aircraft flying over, whether it was Jaguars from the RAF, Tornadoes from the RAF, Harriers from the RAF, but because Lakenheath is a USAF base, we had F-15s, we had we had basically F-15s because that's what's based there. But when the Americans went into Iraq in 2000 and whenever, was sat at home just enjoying myself. I think it was a summer's day, really. Like all the doors open, all the windows open, like the French doors and the extension, stuff like that. And we heard this noise, and it was just like, what the hell is that noise? And then it was a formation of 4 A-10 Warthogs, and they sounded demonic. Like, no wonder the Iraqi tank commanders surrendered in the desert, because they didn't make a cool noise. Yeah, that's Mildenhall. Just see the flashy lights of Mildenhall there. How long have we got? 12 nautical miles to run. Honington. That's Honington down there. Looks like a closed runway, to be honest. Got all those X's on it. The green and white lighthousey type thing. It's pretty cool. Just the detail. So good, this game. Sim, whatever you want to call it. A little bit further over there is Marham. RAF base. Tornadoes were based there, I think. I played a Battle of the Bands there back in, I think it was, excuse me if I just adjust myself, back in like 2011 in the old band I was in. That was a cool experience, being on an RAF base and having to go through security and have passes made, and that was just weird, but cool. I actually tried to join the RAF, funnily enough, but because I'm asthmatic, no can do. Three and a bit miles left to run. And then we have to find Snetterton. Another old RAF base. And what's cool about Snetterton as well is that when they rebuilt the track and upgraded it in 2011, I think it was, they actually asked the British Motorsport fan base to name the corners. The hairpin was called Montreal because it resembled the Montreal hairpin, but after Justin Wilson was killed in the IndyCar crash, they renamed it Wilson. Most of the other corners are named after British racing drivers. There's a corner called Hamilton, there's a corner called Brundle, there's a corner called Nelson because Admiral Nelson was from, you know, this part of the world, Norfolk, which we're in now. I think we've just come up on the Thetford area. I actually need to disable the autopilot here and consider finding this racetrack. See if we can find it. After all this, we need to find it. Where is it? Oh, bother. Can we find Snetterton? There it is. The Snetterton racing circuit. Lotus's test track for a little while. Oh my god. Aiden, what are you doing? Aiden, stop. Now Snetterton, I find that people have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it in terms of sim racing, because in Assetto Corsa Competizione people are like, oh no, I hate this place, but I love it. It's a great track. It has some great corners. You can see the Wilson hairpin there, Rich's turn 1, which is that sort of, I mean, we're basically flying the wrong way around the track again, but where it sort of becomes that long straight, that's turn 1, that's Rich's on the centre straight. Murray's is the tight corner at the top there. Let's just swing it around. So right, now we can see it a bit better now. So we've got turn 1, just where the blue tip of the wing is, the Montreal hairpin, the Wilson hairpin. And then you've got Palmer, Agostini, which is the hairpin at the end, Hamilton, Williams, Oggies, the Bentley Straight, the bomb hole, and all this other stuff. And again, it's just one of these tracks that was once an airfield. But unlike the other airfield tracks like Silverstone and Croft and those, it doesn't resemble an airfield anymore. I guess the Bentley Straight, I think the Bentley Straight might have been one of the runways, I don't know, but you wouldn't have known that's an airfield, to be honest. But I still maintain it's one of the best racetracks in the country. Yes, it's flat, but it's got some great corners. over the back end, that long right-hander you can see over the back where that building is. In a front-wheel drive touring car, it is murder on the front tyres. And then where the bridge is at the end of the Bentley Straight, if I get this right way round, Brundle is the faster of the two left-handers there. Sorry, Brundle is the faster left-hander there where the red and white hatchings are, and then Nelson is the right-hander, which is I mean, that in itself is a very tricky complex, and I think that's the bit that people don't like about it, is that they can't hook that bit up. But it's just part of the challenge of racing. You find corners that you're not necessarily going to enjoy, and corners that you're not necessarily going to have fun with. And the same can be said for this end section. You can see that, oops, you can see the long right-hander, that's Coram, and then into Murray's, that ends the lap onto the centre straight. Again, tricky corner, understeer, oversteer at the same time. So yeah, that's Snetterton. We've pretty much completed part 1 of this journey. We just need somewhere now to set this bad boy down. Now, do I continue on towards Norwich, or do I land somewhere else? Is that at Airfield down there? How long have we got until we get to Norwich? 16 miles. Yeah, nuts to doing that. But at the same time, I don't want to land anywhere that... I don't want to land on a grass runway. I hate landing on grass runways. Over there. There's an airfield. After an hour of flying, let's get this right. So, gear down, flaps down, everything's checked. Cancelled off everything off the flight computer so I can actually see where I'm going. A bit too hot, but smooth like butter, like a criminal undercover. There we go, we're down. Cool. So, this has been a very nice, enjoyable flight. If there is demand for a part 2, I'll do a part 2 where we go to Donny and Birmingham and associated places. But if you have enjoyed this, do give it a like. And if you want to see more, subscribe, get the bell on. With a massive thanks, as always, to the patrons who support the channel via Patreon. If you want to help out, there is a link to Patreon in the description, along with links to Discord, socials, and all that good stuff. And if you want stuff for me to talk about next time out, as we go on an extended flight through the Midlands up towards Donny, via Birmingham and Rockingham and those cool places, do leave them in the comments. I'll add it in so we can fill up the time. And yeah, this has been cool. It's been awesome to do some flight simming for a change. So until next time, I've been Aidan Millward. Have a great day wherever you live in the world. I'm gonna spend my entire life savings on some fuel hit, and I'll see you all again soon for another video. So until then, goodbye.